And welcome to CaribHRForum. Oh, I think I got cut off. Once again, welcome to CaribHRForum's impromptu chat. And this evening, we're testing out the new technology offered by Remo.co. And we're going to actually use different parts of the technology tonight. But to give you an idea of why we're here, we are looking at the question of what it would take to understand better what's rolling out this year in terms of 2020 for HR professionals across the region. It's shaping up to be an exciting year already. Things are happening that have never happened before, and some of it driven by new technologies and other things that are happening. And tonight we've invited two guests to engage in chats. I'll be interviewing both of them or having a discussion. First is Rochelle James from CSHRP, and she'll be talking about the upcoming first regional conference in May. And then we'll have a break for a networking session. And then we'll come back after a few minutes, and then we'll hear from Tracy Wallace, and she'll be talking about self-development, which is one of the big themes for CaribHRForum this year. And then we'll break back out into the plenary session and answer some questions, discuss some of the topics that have been already shared by our two visitors or two guests, end with networking, and then we'll be all done. Given the turnout, I don't think we're going to be here all night, but I've been warned that these things can go forever. But let's kick off with our conversation about conferences this year. And let me bring Rochelle. Let's see. There's quite a few more people than I thought. I'm not seeing Rochelle. Oh, here we go.
Hi, Francis.
Hi, Rochelle. Say again, Rochelle. It cut you off.
Oh, I'm saying hi, Francis.
Hi, Rochelle. How are you?
Doing great.
Great. Well, let's just jump right into it. The two things that we have to discuss tonight are two kinds of conferences that are coming up this year. One is, as I mentioned, the CSHRP, which is I believe it's the first effort to have a live regional conference, an in-person regional conference.
Yes.
And then the other is a virtual conference. I'm actually planning one right now, which is going to be launched next week in the time blocking productivity area. Mm-hmm. And it's a prelude to CaribHRForum having a virtual summit in September. Mm-hmm. So it's two brand new efforts that many people have said didn't foresee and probably said would never happen in their lifetime, and all kinds of reactions to, oh my goodness, how can these things happen? But things change, and we're in a whole new dispensation where new things become possible. So in our discussion, I thought we'd focus on basically our journeys. Because I know from my side, it's a heck of a journey, and the learning curve is blowing me away. And every day it's like, wait, I need to know about that then. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's start with you, Rochelle. Where did the idea come from? Where did the sort of the inspiration hit you? And when and how did that happen? And what were some of the first things you did?
So you would appreciate that for some time I've been sharing with you from being a part of CaribHRForum that I felt like we needed to have a face-to-face conference. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of put the thought on the back burner. It's one of those things where everybody said that somebody should do. So kept putting the seed out there, hoping that somebody would pick it up and some organization would run with it. And then after attending the HRMAT conference in Trinidad, a colleague said to me, and we were talking about it, and she just said, so why don't you do it? And I didn't have a comeback. And before I knew it, I got myself involved in this larger than life event or activity. But to be completely honest, what I never anticipated, and I think probably you can share the same thing, was that there was an overwhelming desire for HR professionals within the region to connect in this way, whether it be face-to-face or virtually. There was this craving, and it just needed somebody or some persons to take the first step.
Right. So you're the pioneer, the one who is bringing everyone together. And you also you've been to Hermab and Hermage as well, right?
No, I didn't attend the Hermage conference last year.
Okay.
But I did attend Hermab, and I will say that for encouraging persons throughout the year, try to attend these regional conferences. Having attended more than one, I've had the benefit of learning from some remarkable professionals, and the knowledge sharing experience is bar none.
One of the things that grabbed me when I attended these conferences was how similar people are, but how I don't want to use the word ignorant because it sounds bad, but they just didn't know each other. And I was here saying, but you're just like, don't you know this one? And they have no idea who else is out there.
And what I'll add to that too is there's a lot of learning that is lost from not being so connected. So because we have similar laws and we have similar employees, because culturally our employees tend to approach from a similar background, there's so much learning that is lost from not being able to connect in this meaningful way. And the other point I like to raise is that if you're in a heavily industrialized work environment, so the union is key in your work environment, and we know from the labor laws in the Caribbean that is usually the case in a lot of companies. They are connecting regularly, meeting, sharing, and comparing notes. So why aren't we as HR professionals doing the same thing?
Right, on a larger scale. The trade unionists, the accountants, who else is also doing? The tourism folks.
The tourism folks, the safety folks, the energy for everyone.
The energy folks, right? They all have regional bodies. But HR hasn't even, we could barely get a conversation together at the highest level. Having tried to do it for several years, I can tell you it's been difficult. And the best we got was a conference call 2 years ago. I know a few visited SHRM, I think 3 years ago. But then the leadership's all changed. And then to make it happen with new leadership is just hard.
Because you're always starting over. You're always starting out with a new leader and trying to sell the idea, which I will say starting out is not the easiest thing to sell the idea. But then too, and I think you can share this, it comes to a point where it is not even about who is willing to buy into the idea, but your own commitment to the philosophy on a whole. The philosophy behind this conference is not even about being another association or being another group or being another organization. The focus is 100% creating a massive networking opportunity for other HR professionals so that we get ahead of the game and we're not playing catch up with the rest of the world. That's it.
Right. And we are weaker when we're apart.
Yes.
And HR already has a reputation of, it's not hard science like finance and it doesn't produce money like sales. And it kind of has, and we were always talking about getting HR at the table. But being separate doesn't help, right?
It really doesn't. What I find most interesting too is that as HR professionals, we don't really have anyone we can compare notes with, because most of what we do is so confidential that the only other person that will understand that level of confidentiality is another HR professional. Right.
I wanna see if I can share the screen for the conference. I should have searched for this before. It's cshrpteam.com.
Yes.
So I'm going to share the screen, which I believe I can do. Ooh. Oh, it's actually this screen. Share this screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
You're seeing it. Oh, I forget. I only have you in front of me. Everybody else is on mute, by the way. But you can put comments in the chat on the right. So take us through the conference. Rochelle, tell us some details, where it's at and who's going to be there to speak, and tell us.
All right, so the conference is going to be from the 13th to the 15th of May in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And why it's so different is because we didn't get up and work in a vacuum and say, okay, we're going to host this conference in May in Montego Bay. But we spent over a month, almost 6 weeks, surveying and getting feedback from HR professionals right across the region. We got close to 600 persons participating, HR professionals participating in that survey, and they voted to go to Montego Bay this year, and they also voted to have the conference in May. We decided on the theme loud because we felt like the voice of HR needed to speak volumes. It needed to be amplified even more. And that's the focus of the conference, not just a series of presenters, but also providing opportunities for attendees to connect, to share information, to network. So we have two unique things in our agenda. The first is that we're going to have a war room, which is us identifying major issues that have come out or have been shared with us from other HR professionals, and we are going to discuss them and develop best practices on spot during the conference.
Oh, like
And
a
the
workshop.
yes, it's kind of like a workshop, a little bit different because the idea behind it is that we're going to be looking at real cases, some new, some ongoing, and see how we can pull our minds together as experts in the field and come up with the best solution possible.
Ah,
And
a live working
the other
session then,
elements of it,
not a workshop.
a live working,
Right,
yes, a
with
live
an
working
output,
session.
an actual output.
Yes,
So not just run
exactly.
up your
Because
mouth
most
kind of things.
exactly, not a bag of chat.
All right.
The next thing is that we're gonna have fireside chats, which is a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit more intimate than a regular panel discussion, and these fireside chats are focused on industrial relations. We have a lot of industrial relations cases. We're focusing on some key areas. For example, fraternization in the workplace. That is something that comes up quite a bit. Some companies have policies against it, some don't. Then we have some major crimes, some big snafus, some mistakes that HR professionals make that they shouldn't make, or we keep making these mistakes consistently in different islands, but we're not learning from each other. So we're going to be looking at those things in our fireside chats, because we know that when it comes to industrial relations, sometimes you feel like you're in the fire.
Right. And is it only industrial relations fireside chats, or do you have some others in there as well? I'm scrolling through your
Our
agenda.
fireside chats are, yes, our fireside chats are focused heavily and primarily on industrial relations,
Okay.
because we recognize that for the other areas, we didn't want to hone in on other people's territory, so to speak. So there are other conferences that focus some on technology or employee engagement. And while we plan to touch on it, we don't want to take away from anyone else's market.
Right. All right. And have an overlap in which you're looking at the
Yes,
same
yes,
thing. Right.
yes. Because then if we spread ourselves too thin, we run the risk of not dealing with every area effectively. So it's better to focus on some core things. So we're focusing on case studies and lessons learned, knowledge sharing for this conference. There are other opportunities throughout the year where we can talk about digitization, the gig economy, and other areas of HR that are focused on in the other conferences.
Right. Are you planning to have another one next year?
Well, we are.
Big breath.
Yes, let me tell you, this I've been eating, sleeping, breathing this conference for the past like 3 or 4 months, and I want to say with all my heart that yes, we're going to have one next year. God's willing, it will not be as much of an uphill struggle to sell the concept and to share it. But yeah, I do see us having another one. The work though has me breathing hard, but I do see us having another one next year.
What's the biggest challenge that you're dealing with at the moment, and how can we help?
The biggest challenge, I would say, so communicate. Well, we have a team that is working on communication, but because it is a new concept of everybody coming together, meeting, and know we're too far over here, and Caribbean Airlines might not be working with us, and the flights are expensive. So it's getting over that hurdle of understanding the necessity for meeting in this fashion. And it is not for the HR professionals to understand, but for business leaders, those who hire HR professionals to understand.
I mean, mainly because it's a new, and the
yes, the ones
and
who
the
will pay the
hotel.
plane fare. Yes, because it's a new concept for them. So we have a great deal of buy-in, but there can always be more support. I will say that in terms of the other elements of the event, we have been receiving strong support from the HR community. As I mentioned to you, if there was a point when I felt like, okay, maybe this is too big, the fact that so many other professionals have been saying, oh, we want this, we need this, we can't wait to see it happen, makes me say, okay, I can't turn back. Yeah.
You don't want to let them
we have
down.
to press on. No, I really don't. The keynote speakers that we have on board, we've been blessed with some persons who are experts in their field. And the best part of it, as you can see, is that they're all regional. And I love that about this event. They all have Caribbean experience. And that's what matters, because the way we practice HR in the Caribbean is not like how they practice it in North America or Canada,
right,
or the UK. It's very different. So that's the area where the support has been remarkable.
Great. Well, we look forward to hearing more as you go along. It's six weeks, you said? 6 weeks away?
Second?
I think I saw a countdown.
Yes, it's just just a few weeks away. So we're at crunch time now.
Okay. All right, let me share a different screen and start talk about the virtual conference. I think I need to do a stop sharing and then share again. And thank you, Rochelle, so much. But don't go anywhere, you know. Don't get thrown off either. That too, because we had all sorts of challenges. Is that visible? No, not yet. I didn't share it yet. Screen one. Bear with me here, folks. Can you see that? Hacking HR?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this isn't quite the inspiration for a Caribbean HR conference. Not where it actually came from. Virtual conference. Where it actually came from was a virtual conference I was part of last year, which had 6,000 people attending, all of whom were free. And I thought, the way I saw it work was, oh my goodness, if we could provide that kind of level of impact for our professionals here in the Caribbean, or HR professionals, because most, unfortunately, don't have a conference in their country. So there's no conference in Guyana. There's no conference in the smaller islands. There's not even, some don't even have societies or organizations. And most, unfortunately, don't have bosses who are willing to pay the couple thousand US to send them over to Montego Bay and put them up in Rose Hall and pay the fee. And they're not there yet. So most HR professionals won't attend a conference for a while, maybe until our economies start really growing. But that's not happening this year. So I was inspired by in part by the conference I helped to put on last year. And then I saw that Hacking HR has and this is, if you see the URL, it's hrinnovationconference.hackinghr.io. And they have some big names involved, but I don't have all the speakers up on this page, but they're having a virtual conference. It's starting on Monday, I believe. Yeah, show you the speakers. They have a real international, 150 people speaking at their conference, because you can scale these conferences, these virtual conferences, to a huge number. Most of the names I've not heard of. There are a couple of names. Dave Ulrich is going to be presenting. A few other famous types, but you can get the idea. It's the scope of it is just tremendous. It's. I imagine they'll have 10,000 people. I think they already have 10,000 registered. So it's a huge undertaking in terms of its impact on people who really just can't afford to go to a conference, and they get exposure to all kinds of other people, other experts that they normally wouldn't get to see. Are you seeing the time blocking virtual summit, Rochelle?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so this is the one I'm putting on next week. So I don't have 150 speakers, but you can see a similar kind of layout. We have 30 speakers, and we're doing a lot of outreach via, as you can imagine, via social media, via email. You probably, if you're on our mailing list, you'll have gotten an invite. And I'm doing all sorts of appearances to bring in attendees, and we have a pretty decent sponsor. And basically, this is the uphill part, as you know, Rochelle. This is the first time I'm doing it alone, and it's all learning curve. But I ask myself, as I go through this, I tell myself, doing the Caribbean HR version of this, which I hope to have happen in September 17th, 18th, and 19th.
Okay.
The dates that we had set. And basically, I would follow the same model, where you start by setting up a website, you go after particular individuals to speak, they advertise to their audiences. And for listeners, if you've never been a part of an HR conference before, a virtual conference, come to this one, timeblocking.summit.info, or Hacking More Up Your Line is the Hacking HR conference starting next week. It really is an experience where you get to rub shoulders with people that you otherwise just would not be able to meet. And as you can tell from the technology that we're using, so this technology we're using to have this call tonight, called Remo. So I only discovered this 2 weeks ago. And it's way better, as you could see, than regular conference calling. It's way better than Zoom. It allows you to feel as if you're almost in a virtual space. And in a minute, we're actually going to flip over and have a chance to use it as we go into have discussions with each other about the conference. But before I do that, Rochelle, am I leaving anything out that I should be addressing about virtual conferences?
I don't think so. I'm looking through your agenda here. Well, your speakers, and looks very exciting.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. But people want to contribute. What can I tell you? I've learned that, if nothing else. You probably have seen the same thing too, right?
Yes.
People really want to contribute, and this is the environments that we're creating are really give people an opportunity to give back. They're not expensive, but hey, looking at the comments over at the right. Let's see. Tracy says testing. Okay. Malika says hi. And Demar says I'm signed up for the Monday session. I guess that's the Hacking HR conference.
Yes.
I think you just typed in nice.
And that's a good one.
Okay, so let's move on to the networking question and answering part. So what we're going to do is flip over from presenting to you, and we're going to move into the plenary session where we have separate tables. And what are some questions that we would like to throw at our audience so that they can talk with each other about for the next, let's say, 10 minutes, Rochelle?
Ooh,
We've asked this before, right?
yes. Well, how would they define or what tools do they think that the ideal Caribbean HR professional needs?
Okay, good one. Um, I would ask them, I think I'd ask them an open-ended one, which is, what would it be like to get to the end of the year and to have had both the first regional conference and the first mass HR conference under our belt? What would it be like to get to the end of the year, and what difference would it make? So with those two questions, I'm going to take us off presentation mode, which means that the next step for you guys to do is to join a table where someone else is. And this is very important. Turn on your camera and turn on your microphone. Don't forget to do that, or else you won't be able to see the other people at your table. And then we'll float around and just join if you want to come and chat with us individually about either of the topics that we spoke about. We're available. So once again, I'm going to hit stop. It's going to stop the recording. It's going to turn us off of the presentation mode. Turn on your camera, turn on your mic, and join in with your other colleagues for the next 10 minutes or so. And I'll tell you when it's time for us to get back together to hear from Tracy. Okay, so stop.